Hello stargazers and welcome back. It's going to be a quick one from me this week because I'm lying in bed very Miss Havisham-esque, slightly run down and tired, and the Virgo full moon, which is probably now sat between my Saturn and Mars conjunction, is telling me to look after myself and my body. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, and more to the point, that's exactly what I recommend you guys do too. So welcome back. I hope your week was okay. Do let me know if you felt that Pluto-Mars trine. I know I certainly did. Blimey, the first 2 days of the week, I felt quite disembodied and not quite with it. Yet come Wednesday, whoom, I just kicked in and did so much that I knew I had to do, but I'd kind of been putting off and putting on the back burner. That could be why I'm a bit run down today, actually. But yeah, let me know, how was it for you, so to speak. Moving on to this week, though, we're kind of all about Mercury one way or another. In fact, I think we end on a note of Mercury Sagittarius trine axis. So it's probably good for us to have a bit of a chat about the North Node first. I know we've spoken about it at length, but at the moment the North Node sitting in Gemini is really pulling on our logic, on our communication in a very, very felt, visceral, real kind of way, really. And if we think about the North Node being where we are striving to be as a collective, it's that lovely acknowledgement that you have your truth, I have mine, while also being able to call out bullshit. It's a very fine line. It's a very difficult balance to get right for a lot of us, and we're all learning big time with this one. And so it's probably good as well to take a look at the condition of the current Mercury, because of course when we talk about the archetypes, when we talk about what they stand for, when we learn them, when we first learn them, we get their out of the box meaning, don't we? However, they're always flavoured. On the one side, they're flavoured by whichever sign they happen to be in. And then on your side, I guess we could say, how you receive that energy, how you pick up that flavour, will all depend upon how your planets are, where they're positioned, what they're talking to, what they're not talking to, and how they're talking to each other. So it's always good to recognize that when we go over these weekly broadcasts, these weekly videos, I prefer that, to always remember that the way you pick up will be very different to the way another person can pick up. So just keep that in mind. You know, you always need to individualize this a little bit. But going back to our Mercury, at the moment he's sat in Aquarius, loving life in Aquarius so much he decided to go backwards for a bit to stay there a little bit longer. And that's cool. That suits us as well, because when he's in Aquarius, he's in the home of Uranus, the higher mind, the higher and the lower octaves talking to each other. So he's swimming around getting an upgrade at the moment. And so when he's trying our North Node, he's actually providing that, I guess we could say, a bridge, that bridge between the higher mind and our lower mind. And when I use the term lower, I don't mean that in any sort of deprecating manner whatsoever. All we're saying here is we are receiving from very much outside of ourselves, outside of our usual daily world, our daily existence, that higher awareness that, say, if you were able to stand above yourself and observe from that higher perspective, that's what's happening with our Mercury at the moment, which is why I'm so in love with it, to be honest with you. And so he starts off this week for us on the 2nd. He's trying the North Node. And been up to that for quite a while now. He's gone backwards and forwards on it. Last went over it, I think, on the 10th of February. And this is his final pass now before he moves on. And this will be at 15 Aquarius and the North Node at 15 Gemini. So just as we said, we've got this lovely bridge between the higher and the lower mind, or the personal and transpersonal mind. That's probably a nicer way, so we don't offend everybody. And not only is he kicking off the week with this nodal aspect, but all through March, you will see that I think most of our personal planets will be making aspect. And yeah, you know, fine. So what, you might think. They do that every month, you know, one way or another, don't they, sort of. But what's going to be really interesting is when we see the Sun and when we see Venus pass over Neptune. If you recall, Neptune's been squaring the nodes for a while, but that's now waning. He's kind of moving out of position. And when the Sun passes over and when Venus passes over, they will be acknowledging that, and there'll be some sort of reconciliation and a recall back to what Neptune's done for us. But we'll talk about that closer to the time. But for now, we can make the most of the trine element, which is that free flow energy that's putting us in the right direction, that unleashing of acknowledgement of all these different realities, different viewpoints, and then we can adjust ourselves accordingly with what we've learned from other people if we need to. So yeah, with this lovely sort of free flow of energy, we can acknowledge all these different viewpoints in the world. We can sift out what we think is bullshit. We can sift out the like minds, yeah, where we feel akin, and we can adjust ourselves accordingly to find the path that we know we are meant to take, which of course will be different for all of us. The world is deliberately made up of varying viewpoints, of varying opinions. That's the variety of human experience, and we need to cherish that. As annoying as it can be when people perhaps challenge our truth, challenge our stance, challenge our beliefs, it's needed because it's how we grow. I think a hive mind mentality in a slightly robotic manner is very frightening and very dystopian. So as annoying as other people can be, we need that annoyance to challenge us and spur us on, I think. So it'll be interesting to see what we're all up to, won't it? Keep your eyes peeled, guys. So moving on to the 4th of March, where Mars decides he wants to join in the fun as well, and he makes his ingress into Gemini. So if you recall, I think we've all been learning lots of valuable lessons around survival and thrival, survive versus thrive in Taurus, and how if we remain embodied, if we feed into that Aquarian energy and make our decisions according to that kind of group-based ethos, perhaps, as an individual, an autonomous individual, as Mars very much is, thank you, we can make great strides and perhaps feel not so much as if we're fighting for our lives. So on the proviso, we've kind of learnt to remain embodied, to learn that where we can break most ground is indeed in the individual, in the body. How we relate to ourselves will naturally then reflect out how we relate to other people. And as long as we've kind of picked up on that a little, the ingress into Gemini will be very good, I think, for a lot of us. Of course, this is where our North Node is. This is where we want to be heading. And Mars is off there. He will be the first of the inner planets to touch base with the North Node. So it's full steam ahead for us. And so what does that really mean? What tangibly, how will we be experiencing that? Well, Mars is now in a very, very social aspect. Gemini is all about multiple points of view, multiple standpoints, multiple opinions, multiple realities. And Mars is going to be very keen to impress his upon everybody else. So we might be quite forward with our opinions, and this is great. You know, it's good to stand up, it's good to be heard, it's good to speak your truth, and it's good to not be scared to do that. Remember, however, Mars does carry that resonance of fear, so just watch that your communication is more empowering and not so much Chicken Little, the sky is falling. We're all kind of called to know what we're talking about under Gemini, the great bullshit detector. So as long as you can hold your truths well, as long as you know what you're talking about and you're bringing something valid to the party, get in there, strike up some conversations, and let's be heard. This is good. I like this one. At the same time, we've actually got Jupiter and Mercury conjunct in Aquarius. So that to me also speaks of expansion of our communication, expansion of our knowledge, expansion of our realities, which Mars will be driving home for us. I think the Sabian symbol, however, for Mercury conjunct Jupiter was a watchdog standing guard, which is great. It's really, if we break it down a bit, a watchdog, their senses are incredibly heightened naturally. They're very good at detecting what's coming into their field and how to act upon it. Just watch your nervous system with this one, is all I would say. Being on guard, being a watchdog all the time can be pretty exhausting, even for dogs, I imagine. So this can perhaps, on the more stressful aspect of Mars, that kind of fear factor that, oh God, what's coming my way now? As opposed to, being confident in our truths, embodying them and discussing them with others. These are the dynamics. So just make sure you take it easy on yourself. Rest up. If you are finding yourself in situations, if you are finding yourself in conversations that are just stressing you out and making you feel quite ill, it's absolutely your prerogative to walk away from anything that makes you feel stressful, that doesn't resonate with your highest self, that doesn't resonate with your betterment. We do have some support though, hanging around in the zodiac. It's always there. If you want to find it, there's always some advice or try this direction of travel. And if we look down at the South Node in Sagittarius, we've got White Moon Selene almost conjunct South Node. In fact, this is where our third quarter moon's going to be, which we'll come on to in a second. And so White Moon Selene is the yin to the yang of Black Moon Lilith, really. And neither of them are good or bad. They are simply aspects of yourself to be integrated, loved and accepted. White Moon Selene can always shine a light for us as to where we can pull on that protective energy. It's quite a dharmic, karmic point in the sky, being the perigee of the moon, actually, the point closest to us. So we can always look to there for some hope. But I'm very much in the way of, I don't know, Mother Kuan Yin or Mother Mary, that kind of benevolence. It's often overlooked in a lot of astrology. I think perhaps a lot of astrologers give the kickback that it's New Age bollocks. And that's a real shame, because it integrated and interpreted well, it can provide some valuable information in both the natal chart and of course the transits that we discuss here. So with her sat so close to the South Node, where can we expect to find our benevolence? Where can we find our support? Well, very much in what we already know. Sagittarius is all about our embodied truths, our intuitive truths, some things that we just know are real. We can't necessarily prove it with logic, statistics, data and facts like Gemini does. Yeah, Gemini will present the very empirical evidence. Sagittarius just knows what it knows. Thank you very much. So pull on that one. If things are getting overly stressful for you, perhaps you're being hit with far too many pieces of evidence proving this, disproving that, this, that and the other, to the point where it's just nonsensical and stressful because there's just too much. And indeed, going back to Gemini, we do have that silver-tongued approach. We have that snake oil salesman that can be very slippery with the truth and bamboozle you with so many facts, data, statistics, that you don't really know what you're looking at anymore. It can be really bloody confusing. So if we take a step back, if we look at the chart, our benevolence here is simply knowing what you know, your intuitive truths. Don't let go of them, yeah? They're so important. And what a beautiful foray into our third quarter moon. Not only is that in Sagittarius, but it's passed over White Moon Selene a couple of hours prior and sits conjunct the South Node. It's almost as if the universe is saying, look, over here. Our quarters, of course, where the moon is concerned, are when we see reflected out to us the physical manifestation of everything we are internally. Certainly if we've been deliberately choosing to manifest and vibrate in accordance with the cycles of the moon, as many of us do. And the Sabian symbol for this one made me giggle once I'd researched it and fully understood it, right? So it's a groundhog looking for its shadow. Now, I've watched Groundhog's Day a billion times. I adore Bill Murray. Lost in Translation, one of my favourite films. It's brilliant. But what I didn't realise, or had somehow kind of completely passed me by, is the whole ritual of the groundhog. So what we mean by that is when the groundhog comes up, he looks for his shadow. It's more of a legend, I guess, that if the groundhog sees his shadow, he returns back to his hole for 6 more weeks. If he doesn't see his shadow, he takes it as the first sign of spring and stays above ground. I didn't know that. And how brilliant for this moon. With all of this flurry of mental activity going on and the potential stresses of it, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to be like the groundhog and go, yay, and dive in. Or will it maybe be along the lines of, yeah, I think I'm just going to give it 6 more weeks, actually. I'm torn, I won't lie. I'm kind of betwixt the two, maybe 3 weeks. We could also, of course, look at the whole shadow aspect, couldn't we? As in, are we going to hide away from our shadow? Or are we going to kind of bring it out into the light and give it a cuddle? Tell it life isn't so bad after all. Maybe now is a good time to be kind of really looking at ourselves and doing some integration work of what are we scared of, what won't we look at, and why. This could be an opportune moment, particularly when we think about how the whole dynamics are set at the moment with the Gemini Sagittarius polarity being caught between our own truth and other people's. You know, what do we cultivate to present to others, and equally what do we push away from others to preserve within ourselves? There's a whole heap to untangle for us there, isn't there? So right, my guys, on that note, I'm going to go and lay back on my bed and probably eat fruit pastels and watch The Big Lebowski. I send you all my love, and I'll see you again next week. Take care.